Nice.
Uh-huh.
All right. Solid.
Okay. Yep. Show
Solid.
your Kyle background.
All right. Beautiful.
Yep. Happy birthday.
All right. I think we're rolling in the deep. Leah, Fasten. So listen. I'm I'm not going to apologize for you, Leah. I'm not. But Leah, she may or may not have some jet lag. She's a jet setter. I don't know if you knew this, but she was gallivanting all over the globe. Welcome back. And
I was in the UK.
how was your trip?
It was lovely in the
Yeah.
UK. Yes, I was in England. I was in London, and then I went up to Lincoln. We were going to go down to Brighton yesterday, but it was raining, so we could not go down to Brighton. Raining, and there was a train strike. The strikers. So we stayed in London.
Yeah.
It was great. So it was good. I just want to say that I got back from London about 4 hours ago, 5 hours ago, and I'm a little jet lagged. So if I'm not making
she's not
sense
responsible
tonight,
for anything she says tonight.
That's right. But I'm here, and I'm really excited. We've got such a great salon tonight. I'm so excited about Paris, and it's going to be a really great night. So
yeah, no, I'm excited. I'm excited. Let me change my layout here.
And for those of you just coming on, it is Kyle's birthday. So we dropped a link into the chat. Please make a background to celebrate Kyle. I did have some intro music. If you heard it, we can play it again as the salon wraps up. As well.
Getting older by the day.
Getting older by the day. 39 is a tough birthday. You know, 40's coming up.
Exactly. Do you think this AI stuff is aging us, or is it slowing time down?
Oh, interesting. I think it's no, that's a good question. I think that it's playing with time a lot. It's messing with what time is.
It is.
Right?
We got the typical misspelling, Kyle.
No, nice. Yes. I'm thinking of changing my name to have the 2 L's in it.
Yeah.
Without the jank, it wouldn't be appropriate for Kyle.
Exactly.
That's right.
Happy birthday, Kyle.
Happy birthday, Kyles.
All right,
should we start this?
Let's get this thing rolling. Welcome everybody to the AI Salon. Leah and I will be your guides for the evening. We'll be walking you through this this party, this AI party, and yeah. So why don't we jump in? So Leah and I started the AI Salon in I can't believe it's been this long. December 7th, 2022 was our first meeting. So it was the week after ChatGPT came out.
Yeah.
And I think you and I were both at least enamored with the idea of AI, but also like recognizing that it was early and no one was going to have this figured out. And so we thought, why not make a safe place where people could come do that?
Yeah, and play, right? A place to come, explore, play, go have some therapy sometimes if we needed it, whatever it takes to do AI.
Yeah, exactly. And sort of heading off on this adventure together. And you can see my screen, right? I'm sharing my screen.
Yep.
And how we describe it, the salon is a ragtag group of misfits, ne'er-do-wells, and miscreants who have gathered to explore the uncharted wilderness of generative AI. We are everyone from entrepreneurs to educators, from healthcare workers to creatives, and everyone in between. This is the thing that I think makes this community work as well as it does is just how people show up, and the energy that they bring and the passion that they bring and the values. And so let's walk through our values, just because I think it's important to remind ourselves, who we are and who we want to make sure that we keep being.
Yeah, and I want to just make a nod too. I was thinking about our salon and all the creative work coming out of it, and you and I, and how we just think about creative things. That's how our minds think, and how we've both had careers that in some capacity have led creative processes somehow, right? And so what I think is really cool about you and I launching the salon now and thinking about this on your 59th birthday is that we are both bringing years of doing this in other creative ways. And so our values also reflect what we know to build a community that makes great creative work, right? Great. And I think my perspective is that all generative AI is creative work. And whether you're using that to build ChatGPTs, you're using that to make songs, you're using that to solve a healthcare problem, there still is a creative piece to it that is really exciting to think about in terms of generative AI.
Well, let me share something with that. There was something back in my agency.com days, back in the olden timey days in the 90s. I remember we had a kerfuffle at some point where some of the project managers and the account people were bristling on, only the creative department can be creative, right? There was like, it was the creatives, and then everyone else was, by default not creative.
Yeah.
And one of the things that hit me, and this was very true in the early days of the internet, was everyone had to be creative. And what we came up with was a distinction between, creative product and creative process, right? Creative product is like pictures and music and art and things like that. And you can make creative product, but creative process, right? The process of being creative, of thinking creative, that's absolutely required by everyone right now. And so I think that's a really important distinction. It's not just about creative in the sense of the output, it's creative in spirit. And that's really what I think these values ultimately reflect.
Yeah, and I think what AI is doing, and it's doing very quickly, is that it's taking those silos of expertise we've all been working in the creative world for years and years, and flattening that. So you have AI, you have account folks who are now doing the copywriting, and you have art directors who are now generating images, and you have photographers who are doing art direction, and it's all sort of like getting mixed up into creative. I mean, I just made a happy birthday song for Kyle.
Yeah,
right? I wouldn't have done that, really. I never had a synthesizer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I had synthesizers, but I didn't have the talent.
Yeah, exactly. So I was reflecting on that as I thought about the values. So I'm going to read the values now because they're important, and I love sharing them. Let me pull them up on my screen here. Okay. Our first value is curiosity. We are eager to learn new things, ask questions, and experiment. We started this salon because we were curious. That was our first conversation. I reached out to you because I was curious about how you were doing your portraits, and the rest, as they say, is history. Generosity. We are willing to share our knowledge, resources, and feedback with others and to support each other's growth and development. There's so much to learn we can't possibly keep up. Even if it's obvious to you, it might not be to the person next to you. Share as you learn. Exploration. We are excited to try new things, take risks, and embrace uncertainty and ambiguity. Act as if no one knows what they're doing because no one knows what they're doing. Makes me giggle. Collaboration. We look for opportunities to work with others, to exchange ideas, and to create something greater than ourselves. Find a partner or a posse, start a project, start 10. We won't judge you, and who knows, you just might make a friend or the next $1 billion venture.
And there's so many projects happening. It's really cool to just, hear about them, see them, be part of them. It's like there's so much going on. That's really cool.
It is really cool. Inclusion. We actively seek out and value diverse perspectives and experiences, recognizing that our differences make us stronger. We create an environment where everyone feels seen, heard, and respected, and where everyone has equal opportunity to contribute and succeed. Empathy. We are mindful of the impact of our work on others, and we strive to create work that is respectful, inclusive, and meaningful. AI is one of the most transformative technological advances in humanity. Humans matter. Take each other in and act from a place of compassion. And gratitude. We believe gratitude is a practice. Gratitude is not just a feeling, but an action. Take the time to acknowledge the effort, support, and successes of the extraordinary people in this community, especially if someone inspires you. Go out of your way to acknowledge them. Tag them in your posts. Reach out and let them know they made a difference.
Exactly. Thank you for doing that.
Well, thank you, Kyle. I appreciate you.
Thank you very much. I saw Kath G entered. Kath, are you willing to pop up on stage and just say a little bit about the speaker form that we just launched, and I can tell people where to do it? If not, I'm happy to do it. But are you willing to go off mute and just tell us about the form that you put together?
Yeah. Hi, Kyle. Yeah, sure. I'm I have a little bit of laryngitis, but hopefully you'll get all this. Yeah, so I'm excited to share that we have a new form to help everyone here in this group give their input on the kind of speakers they'd like to see, and if they'd like to be a speaker themselves, or maybe they know someone, a colleague, a friend, or maybe there's somebody they're just like enamored by that. It's like an AI, god or goddess, and you'd like to see them as well. Then you can suggest that within this form. So we're going to introduce that tonight. Yeah, we'd love to hear your thoughts, and so we can kind of like tap into this amazing network and see who else we can bring on board to speak.
Yep, exactly. And to find it, if you're on the AI Salon, I'm going to be talking about this here in a second. Under the salon info at the top, there's volunteers and speaker suggestions. So there are now 2 forms here. If you want to volunteer, there's that form. And now we have a speaker selection form here. I assume this is where it's going to live permanently, but I haven't had a chance to coordinate with Bradley yet. So it might move, but this seems like a decent place for now. So if you have ideas for speakers, and also back to the spirit of gratitude, I want to thank Kath and everyone else. We now have people that are actually wrangling speakers and thinking about this. It's been a very ad hoc kind of high stress situation up to this point, because we were always doing a million things. And so Kath, I just want to acknowledge you for jumping in and taking it so seriously and helping us get speakers.
Thanks, Kyle. I'm glad to do it. You guys give so much to me too, so I appreciate you guys as well.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Okay, so what I'd like to do, we just haven't done this in a while. If you haven't been to the Mighty Networks, if you haven't joined it, you should. If you just came here through Meetup or something like that, or some other way, the URL of the community is aisalon.mn.co. And a couple of sections in it. Obviously, where we started was at the top about the salon. You've got some basic information about the community. That's where the volunteer form is, FAQs, things like that. Kind of the free for all section of the community is the community section. If you haven't officially introduced yourself in the salon, I encourage you to do it. So there's a couple of things we encourage. We encourage you to use your real name, and I strongly encourage you to introduce yourself. And the reason for that is we are quickly moving into a world where being a part of community and having trusted relationships is going to be how people get hired, right? As we move away from hiring people because they can do a specific skill, when those skills get democratized, how do you hire people? Well, you'll hire people you'll hire people you trust, you'll hire people who you know to be leaders or can get stuff done. So I'd strongly, strongly encourage you to take that value of generosity and come into the introduce yourself section and introduce yourself and just tell us who you are, things like that. Other notable things, salon events are listed here in community. This third link, AI Launchpad and Tools, this is a list that I maintain of lots and lots of AI tools, like lots of them, starting with ChatGPT. But, here's a bunch of different large language models. Here's some image creation models, video creation, music and audio. That list is growing, 3D and objects. And then, a couple of interesting announcements of things that are coming and interesting people to follow. And then finally, some directories, if that wasn't enough. But everything on this list is something that will not be a waste of your time to do it. So that's the Launchpad and Tools. So check that out if you haven't. You can ask for help here. The water cooler is what you'd think it would be. You can just talk about anything. There's a news section. So if you've got ideas if you hear any news and think the community should know about it, do that. And then there's also a shameless self-promotion area. So jump in here and talk about something you have going on. All right. And then the show and tell section has expanded. So show off your work. We've got images, music, video, and animation, and then GPTs, apps, and sites. So go there and show off cool stuff you do. What we encourage you to do is show off work you've done, and just go in there and pop things in there. Let people know what you got going on. Then we have guilds, and so we'll sort of make a transition here after I go through the site. So if you lead a guild, just go ahead and raise your hand so that I know who's here and who's got something to say. We'll have the guild leaders talk about their guilds, but we have a creative guild area that's got things like 2D art that Leah runs, and Jane runs the writer's circle, and John has newly taken over the video guild, and we've got Danielle's Mad Libs in there. Then we've got the business guild with Ken and Brad. We've got Future of AI Publishing in there. We've got the technology guild with AI Mechanics with Pate. We've got Learn and Do with Peter, and Weekend Jams. Weekend Jams is amazing. So Ann Murphy runs Weekend Jams. That's amazing. And then Social Impact Guild. The theme of the night tonight is somewhere in this neighborhood. And Vicky and Joy run the Ethics Guild. Then we've got Education, the Healthcare Guild, and this is where, if you want to make a difference or you want to deal with some of the issues with AI, this is a good place you can explore that. Then we've got community clubs and things like that. So if you haven't been to the salon website in a while, please come back and engage. And there's just lots here and lots of interactions. So did I miss anything, Leah?
No, I think that's a great overview, and I can't encourage people enough to dig in and be involved. And I was thinking about even just the page that you share of the resources that you keep updated, and what a resource that is, right? Like how often, like there's so many tools out there and there's so many ways to do a million things, and that you vetted them and said, this is a great tool to try. That alone is worth a minute to take a look through in our community. So I want to encourage everyone to really spend some time and see where you might fit in here. There's so much amazing information. I feel like it just kind of becomes more so and more so. Beautiful.
Yeah. All right. So guild leaders, tell us what's going on in your guilds. Why should people come hang out with you? What are you doing? What have you done? What have you done for us lately?
Creative guild leaders especially, pop in here if you've got stuff going on. John or Danielle, if you're here and want to share what's going on. If not, I can give an overview, but you'll speak better.
Sure,
I
can jump in.
Okay.
You know me, I'm not bashful.
Excellent.
I led my first video guild session on Sunday, and in the spirit of community, it's very interesting because I posted the recording. We did it on Zoom, and Peter Kaminsky said, "Hey, why don't you put that on YouTube? I have a playlist." His demo things that he does, what's it called, show and tell? No, something else. Anyway,
Learn and Do with Peter.
Yeah, Learn and Do. But anyway, so we covered 2 demos. Kyle demoed Adobe Express and how he does the Frank animations, and Jeannie demoed HeyGen, and we got into a whole discussion about video and ads using avatars. And just today, I posted that on YouTube. And, we can get into the workflow and all that, but it's great that the AI Salon is getting exposed on YouTube at the same time that recording can stay, and I don't have to use up my personal recording on Zoom. But anyway, we're having fun, and the video space is morphing very rapidly, and the whole idea of avatars and all of that is something that I'm intending to dig into further. But we're having fun. Come play.
I think your timing of jumping into the video guild right now is a pretty good one. I think once Sora drops, I think that guild is going to be one that's going to, I don't know, like all the different ways that video is being brought to life with AI is just absolutely insane. So it's really exciting.
Well, and I see that people are asking for the link, so I'll put the link to that session with the recording in the chat.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, John. Danielle, just had your hand raised.
I raised my hand. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah.
I did have it raised. Yeah. I intended, first of all, happy birthday, Kyle.
Thank you very much. I love the 80s chrome look. Very nice.
You like that?
Yeah.
Okay. So
yeah, solid.
I do the Mad Libs, and yes, I know I don't do them as frequently. Okay, but I've been planning on I've been planning on making one more of a tutorial to like basically tell people like what's the big deal, because they're supposed to be fun. But I still haven't figured out how to make the little circle thing. I've been watching YouTube videos. I want to make a little like
Loom.
put my head in the
Loom.
corner.
Loom.
Hello.
Loom is the app. Loom is
Loom. Okay, by using Loom. Okay.
I'll put the link in here. But
What
Loom is what you're
I
looking
didn't know what you were saying. I was like, what did she say?
Loom.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
Loom is what you're
okay.
looking for. It's a very cool site that you can record yourself recording your videos and show people what you're doing.
Cool.
It's just a
Well,
great,
I
it's a
think
great
that-
tool.
I think that like just doing a quick like 2-minute just explanation, because I'm a visual learner. I'd rather have someone tell me what to do rather than like just read it off a page. So I'll get that out to you guys, and maybe more people will be engaged and be wanting to try it out. So because it creates I give everyone the same prompt and everyone comes up with something totally different. So hopefully you guys will want to try it out.
Beautiful.
The Mad Libs are great fun. I encourage everyone to try it. And I'm also going to I just dropped a link for it's a tool called Loom. There is an AI upgrade that I upgraded to that will automatically clean up ums and spaces, if that's something you're interested in. But it's just a pretty basic tool, and there's a little head of you explaining what you're doing, and then you can demo anything. And I found it incredibly useful for asynchronous communication with folks. So if I want to show someone how to do something, we don't necessarily need to get a meeting. I can just say, hey. I can also show how I might edit something for clients. I've sent one of those videos, that sort of thing. So it's a very useful tool.
Leah, can I jump in on that?
Yeah.
I love this app called Tella.tv, TELLA.tv. It's like Loom on steroids.
Ooh.
Because it records your screen share and your video separately. So if you want to take whatever your screen recording in Loom and make it vertical with the screen share on top and your face on the bottom, because when you do it on Loom, you're kind of locked into your little face and whatever you record. But Tella is much more flexible and powerful and not difficult to use. It's a really cool app.
This is awesome. Maybe I'll try it. I have no allegiance to them.
I'll put that link in the chat too. The Video Guild is in the chat. Bye for now.
Leah's like, there goes my affiliate money. Damn it.
God damn it. There goes my 3-cent click-through of the 4 people that sign up.
And I'm not posting my Tella affiliate link, which I have. I'm just posting Tella.
You should post your Tella affiliate link.
Yeah, feel free.
Hell yeah. Get
all right,
that
all right.
affiliate dollars.
All right, I'll do it.
From our 42 folks here. I think that's who's here from the Creative Guild.
We got Stacy.
Okay, Stacy's here. Yep.
Hey everybody. Hi. First of all, if you're an educator, Loom will give you a free upgrade. So if anybody needs there's a form you have to fill out. You can reach out to me or just Google it. But yeah, you get a free upgrade with Loom. And so Matt and I lead the Education Guild, and we do all things education. We're having our next meeting on Monday where we're going to be talking about how to talk about AI and teach AI to people who are anti-AI. So that's going to be a fun conversation. We all are working with a lot of teachers and other people who are going to have to embrace AI soon. And they might be kicking and screaming. So how to have a good conversation with them without them getting defensive as best as possible. But we do a lot of other things. Not everybody in the guild are educators. We have higher ed people, we have learning and development people, instructional design. So feel free to join us if you are interested in education. And happy birthday, Kyle.
Thank you. Thank you, Stacey. I appreciate it.
Okay, and I think Bradley with our Business Guild. What's happening, Bradley?
Yes. Oh, just the typical overwhelming nature of AI and where the world's going. Other than that, everything's great.
The radical transformation of work as we know it.
Work, life, existence, value. It's all up in the air.
Yeah.
So I'm Brad Perkins, leader of the AI for Business Guild. And so we usually have discussions bi-weekly that just kind of talk about AI in the business realm and some of the effects that are happening with the market, startups, exit strategies, the workforce, the workplace, like the physical workplace environments, and really everything that AI is causing, but also some of the news that's kind of coming out. So we are actually going through a little bit of a restructure in the sense of kind of changing up our meeting structure to be a two-part series and maybe potentially going to weekly, where on 1 week it's really discussion where we live in the pain for a little bit, discuss about our frustrations, at least from a workflow standpoint. And then the following week we go and we solve kind of those top problems that were discussed during the last week's session, and really kind of get into using AI to solve a frustrating problem or a workflow in the world of business, or a job or task that needs to be done. So that might be a new framework, so we can kind of get both sides of the equation. One, we can kind of live in the current state of how things might not be prepared for these speed ups in time and businesses inadequacies and things that just were the old way of doing things and things that annoyed us, that now we have the power to change. And then that's where we'll transition into figuring out solutions to change those. So those will right now they're being scheduled on Thursdays at 5 p.m. Mountain, which are really kind of 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. Check your local listings. And then, but we might, change that day up. We're still kind of discussing, what might work out best for that format, and kind of give us time for prepping and so on and so forth. So stay tuned. But right now, our next meeting, which will have one more of the traditional format, next Thursday at 5 p.m. Mountain, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, and that would be 6 a.m. Bangkok time, if you're curious.
He's got reasons for that. Apparently, he's going to tell us at some point. So Bradley, Jim Ross said, I got to be better about attending some of these guilds. So I think that's permission. You can stalk him. You can force him to come to your guilds now. So if you're looking for participants, Jim Ross just volunteered.
Sounds good. He might be first up to kind of walk us through some solutions, and we can kind of ideate on the call.
Actually, it's not a bad idea. There you go, Jim. Not only attend the guild, but present at it. Boom. All right. Do you have any updates for what you're up to, Leah, with the creative stuff?
In the guild, just come post something you're excited about in our 2D workshop and give us a little background on it. I've learned so much from folks posting one image or post 3 or 4 images, and just give us a little background about how it came to be. It's a longer form post, and I think we can all learn a lot from it.
Great. All right. Any other guild leaders? Anything else? Going once? Going to Eric Sander.
There he is. Hey, Eric.
Hey, everyone. I'm not a guild leader, but I am co-host along with Greg Rosner and Liana Goldberger of the New York City local meetup.
Great.
Which is this coming Tuesday. We had a lot of people RSVP, so the space is going to be kind of packed. But if you're here right now and you still want to come, then just DM me or just show up. Even though we're over capacity, we have a wait list. But
beautiful.
It's
where's the information is it in the salon?
I will put a link in the chat.
Beautiful.
Yep.
RJ.
I too am not a guild leader, but Peter's traveling today, so I thought I'd just mention that I just put in the chat our Learn and Do link that Peter set up a website that has all of our meeting information, including YouTube recording links. And then there's also a link I put in the chat about our past events if people want to see what we've been up to.
That's great. And, you know, the thank you for bringing that up, RJ, and sharing that. Peter's Learn and Do, it really is. Peter's incredibly generous about, especially if you want to do things like start playing around with local large language models and, geeking out a little bit and getting under the hood a little bit with some of the AI stuff, or at least how you put the tools together. Definitely check out Peter's group. It's awesome. Liz.
Oh. Hey, sorry. Also not a guild leader, but this coming Tuesday, we're going to have the local Chicago AI happy hour. And for those of you who are in Chicago, we'd love to see you. And I put an invitation on the site in the events.
Beautiful. Yeah. Love it.
Love it. Happy birthday.
Thank you. Vicki?
I am a guild leader, but I want to talk about the events and make sure that everyone puts their events on the events page so they eventually get posted to LinkedIn and Facebook. Please. Thank you.
That's very good. You have been finger wagged. Put your events in the salon.
I'll jump in here since we're talking about events. I am not running an AI Salon event per se, but I am speaking at the American Photographic Association of San Francisco is hosting a talk on AI and creative work and photography. I'm speaking next Wednesday, a week from tomorrow night there. So I put the link in. I think it's free. And you can come hear me. And also Tim Archibald, who spoke here earlier in the year, will also be speaking, plus a few other really creative folks. And it should be an interesting night because it really will be about photography and the intersection of photography and generative AI.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. So I want to demo a couple of things that for me start to feel like they're marking a trend toward a new kind of tool. We are, I think we're going to move pretty quickly into the world of agents, right? That these AI things that, take actions on our behalf. So I want to demo a couple of those things. But Leah, you and I were talking earlier, and we kind of stumbled on this theme that I think you and I are both like, it feels like we're being thrust back into analog, right? or there's something about the how automated AI is that makes me appreciate like crafting something, right? You talked about this a little bit in the last meeting. The other night on my TikTok live, we wrote a song. We took like 2 hours and we started in ChatGPT and ideated, and we just went through for 2 hours just writing lyrics and rewriting the song and just like crafting it. And like what came out was like a good song, right? And then I also, you said, well, what are you thinking about photography wise? Because I was just talking about how the fact that I just don't take pictures much anymore. But I have this idea. I've been really curious lately. Can you all see that? See, it looks like a little football.
Yep, we see it. Yeah.
So that is a stamp of a concrete worker on a sidewalk block. And I've just been noticing as I've been walking around my house, like these are, like every 10 sidewalk blocks, there's like some craftsman, up until like the mid 90s, they used to put these stamps in sidewalks, and like this kind of stuff is disappearing. And there's something that for me that feels like I'm feeling drawn to like handcrafted stuff. Yeah. So you mentioned that too. So what's been going on for you with this?
Well, I find that I think I've mentioned this before, but as I spend time, I'm a very physical photographer, right? When I'm making pictures, I'm out with my camera, I'm moving around. Very rarely do I put it on a tripod. And I'm very physical. I'm moving a lot. The somatic experience is important in my creative process. And I find that when I sit at a computer and generate imagery, I enjoy the creative process, but something kind of funny happens to my brain where I am then craving something tactile after. And so I'm a big sewer, and I sew a lot and make a lot of my own clothes. And I pulled my sewing machine back out, and I was really kind of on a hiatus from it. And I've just been sewing up a storm. And there's something about the physical
Yeah.
The physical piece, the thing that I've just made is a thing that's been really important to me. And when I was in England, I went to the Victoria and Albert Museum, and they have a wonderful collection of photography, and they presented the photography as they do a sort of a historical survey, starting with the physical objects of photographs from the late 1800s and early 1900s, and which are objects, and they're beautiful objects, and how I became much more interested in the object of the photograph than I have in the past, the actual silver print. Or
you mean like metal plates with
exactly.
Like
metal plates or whatever the substrate was that they were making images with, which has changed and shifted over time. And how I've been thinking a lot about the mechanical nature of old cameras and 4x5 cameras. That's not really something I've thought about much in my career. Yeah. And now, as I push more into using generative AI, it's like, what's the silver gelatin process of a 4x5 camera?
Yeah.
I'm thinking a lot about that.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Laurie Blair said, I feel a creative deficit if I'm not making something with my hands. And I think maybe that's it. It's like, so let me demo some tools that are kind of, they live in the sort of new and exciting thing. Oh, let me share my screen.
Speaking of making, while we sit and hand knit or embroider.
And it's, because I think these tools, they bring this into relief, and these are very early tools, and what we're about to experience over the next year or two is going to be these things kind of on steroids. So so I'm just calling these nearly agentic tools that are starting to emerge. So the first one is Decohere stations. So stations were released on Decohere I don't know, last week or something like that. If you haven't seen Decohere, so it's decohere.ai. If you haven't seen it before, it's built on top of Stable Diffusion XL, SDXL Turbo. And the turbo part of this is it creates images really quickly. So I can say a middle-aged man on his birthday on a Zoom call. So there we go. And so, you notice as I'm typing, it's generating images. So let's do some other, let's do, I don't know, a lovely mountain lake with the sun setting in the distance. So there you've got your images, and it just, you can kind of infinitely scroll. Now, you can upscale them. You can turn these into movies. Decohere does that. But there's this new little button here called Create a Station. So if I click that button, it says Go to Station. What it's going to do is it's going to take this image that I chose, and that becomes the seed for what is effectively a visual radio station. That's why they're calling it stations. So this is generating a new original image every second, just kind of for infinity, right? And like this one, it put a boat in it. So I think one of the things that they're doing is they're kind of slightly altering the prompts. I don't quite know what the mechanism is. It doesn't matter. But you don't have to prompt, right? You don't have to think about prompting. You can literally just be, navigating in this intuitive way from wherever you were to some other place. If you don't want to start with creating your own image, you can just go to the Explore tab here and click on that. And then this is now a stream of a bunch of stations. That's nice of Donald. This is a bunch of stations just coming, but any one of these I can grab and turn that into a station, right? So I don't even have to do it, with my own image. So again, this is a thing that allows you to be very passive with it, but I could also see this being a tool in a creative process where you're using this for ideation, and maybe you're building mood boards and things like that. So I don't think these tools are necessarily mutually exclusive from crafting, but this feels like a big deal to me that that image generation as entertainment or as a passive experience feels kind of new. And it sounded like someone raised their hand. So someone have a question?
Oh, I'm sorry, Kat. No, I was going to say that happy birthday to you. Thank you for being our leader and helping us with this mess.
Thank you very much. That's very sweet. Thank you.
And also that the stations are not infinite. After an hour or something, they stop.
Okay. So that makes sense. Oh, the other cool thing about stations, you can share them. So if I click on this and say now playing, I can save a station so you can go back to it, but I can also share it. So it copies that link. So if I take this into the salon and I go into, I'll go into graphics show and tell, and I'm going to paste this station. If you go to that station, we will be seeing the exact same images. So
do you need an account to see the stations?
What's that?
Do you need an account with Decohere to see the stations?
You do not. You need an account to be able to upscale the images. But you know, if you've got, you know, a ChatGPT account, you could just take the images over there, have it describe them, or, you know, take them into Midjourney. So you need an account to upscale them. But no, stations are free to everyone. So if you go to the station, I just pasted in show and tell, like, you'll see the exact images that are showing up here. So that's stations. Really interesting new tool. And again, for me, where I go is to this place where replace image generation with every other kind of thing an AI tool can do. And imagine something like stations for that. You know, here's a dynamically created Spotify. Here's something that just generates casual games. Ivan was talking earlier about making games. Imagine a site that just spews casual games with, you know, with artwork and gameplay, right? You know, so it feels important to me.
Kyle, can I jump in real quick? Because I think I missed it. Where do you turn what you made into a station?
Okay, so if you go to create, you pick, let's see, I'll just type anything here.
Yeah.
You click on that cool little car, and then this little radio icon.
The radio icon, got it. Okay, thank you.
Yep, and then that turns into a station.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Okay, so, sorry, question?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Kyle. Could you also, how do I get on the same channel as yours for the...
Yep, go to the AI Salon in Images and Graphics Show and Tell, and if you click on this link here, or wait, I can also
thank you.
I think it's still on my clipboard. You got it? I can also put it in the chat. Hang on, let me put it in the chat. Yeah, there you go. So now it's in the chat. So that will now go to, let's see, where was it? Oh, I got to put it here. We'll all be looking at the same images. So you should see, like, you know, skull dudes playing poker, and you should see these blue priests over here. And the other thing is, any one of these images, click on the image, and then you can turn that into a station, right? And so it's just like you can, you know, if you could run down rabbit holes before, now you can run down them really, really quickly. And so there's something really powerful here.
It does also look like you do need to upgrade to use stations.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's what it's telling me I need to do.
Oh, all right. Well,
maybe it wasn't that way yesterday. Who knows?
Yeah, that's possible. I'm pretty sure it wasn't that way yesterday, but you know, I could also imagine that it's costing them a lot of compute to be making sort of infinite scroll wheels.
Yeah.
So the other thing I wanted to show, you probably heard of Devin, which is they call it the world's first virtual engineer or something like that, but it's this autonomous agent for programming. Couple of things about Devin. This is the company's called Cognition. Cognition is less than a year old. It's like 8 months old. Early this year, they raised money at a $350 million valuation. Right now, they're seeking a $2 billion valuation. This is in less than a year, right? Like, just the valuations in this AI space are just absolutely bonkers. But they did a hackathon, and the people that participated in the hackathon got access to Devon 2.0. There are a couple of examples of it, so I just wanted to show one of them because it's kind of bonkers as well, and it gives you a sense of when people say autonomous agents, a lot of times you're like, I don't know what that actually means. This is what that means. Oh, and wait, hang on, I just realized something. You're not gonna be able to hear this, but power tip: if you're in Google Meet and your browser of choice is Chrome, you can't share your whole screen and audio. But if you open a Safari window and go to a site, you can share audio. Okay, so.
So first of all, it goes to finds the McDonald's site, and you can see it asked Devin to help me apply for a job using the web. So let's get right into it. I asked Devin to help me apply for a job at McDonald's, since Devin is gonna, if Devin takes away all our software jobs. So first of all, it goes to finds the McDonald's site, and you can see it selects a job from the dropdown. Here's a plan it makes, and it goes into the job description. And it looks like McDonald's actually has a AI chat, which is super meta. So now we have an AI talking to an AI. And so here it's talking to McDonald's Olivia, like AI hiring bot, and is giving it my information. Okay, just docked myself, great. And it's able to figure out how to use this chat window and go all the way to the end. Awesome. And next I asked it to help me apply Taco Bell as well. And at this point, instead of telling Devin all my details, like my phone number, my email, my address, I gave it to it in a playbook, which is this new feature where you can write out like a preset, like set by set of instructions in a markdown file, basically.
Are you playing that at extra speed?
I don't think so.
Because he's talking unintelligibly fast. Can you slow it down?
That's going to be too slow. Did I do that right? Yes.
To execute your task, and this has been really powerful. And so it goes to Taco Bell.
And so to catch you up, do you understand what he's doing so far? That Devin is.
No, I don't.
You don't know. Okay. So he's basically set up Devin. So what Devin does is it creates a project plan. You give it a goal, right? And so the goal he gave it was, go get me, I want to apply for jobs at fast food restaurants. And so what Devin does is it creates a goal, like a project plan, and then it starts to execute that project plan. So like step one on the project plan might have been, go find the McDonald's website and find the local McDonald's website to see if they have any jobs at my local McDonald's. And then the tool itself is the thing that went to the McDonald's site. It navigated the McDonald's site to find the chat where, they were interviewing someone to see if they could, apply for a job. And then its AI had an interaction with McDonald's AI chatbot and actually applied for that job. And now it's moved on to Taco Bell.
It looks for jobs in Palo Alto. It clicks on apply, and it starts filling out all my details on this form. And I was really impressed. A lot of tricky things here, kind of like clicking the state and province opens a drop down that you have to scroll through and click on California. I mean, not necessarily that hard, but like, I guess more complicated than just filling out a text field. And it's going through these. I gave Devin permission to just make things up for me. So I never told it I know how to speak English, for example, but I just let it assume that for me. And then this is basically just it going through and filling out the form. And there we go. I actually got an email a few seconds later from Taco Bell telling me that my application was received. And finally, I had to do the same for Jack in the Box, which is a slightly different website, but it's able to figure out how to find the careers page, how to get to the jobs, and all that good stuff. There's my address as well. Great.
So anyway, so it basically learned all that stuff, right? It's just, You know, it just, he gave it a goal, it went off and figured all that stuff out, navigated it together, and off it went. Kenneth, question.
Yes, you hit the Spotify buzzword a minute ago when you were talking about a Spotify station. And I was curious, a couple things. Number one, how far have you gotten on Spotify for the Nervous Room? And
I applied for it. It's in review.
And also, do you have any idea about a AI learning lab kind of channel where people can put stuff in for review and possible submission as a group?
Haven't really thought about it, but I will do that. I'll start thinking about it. Cool.
Thank you.
Yep, you got it. Ross. Question, you're muted.
Yeah. I wanted to know, with respect to the previous AI that you were talking about, that did all the stations and the video stations and stuff like that. I was wondering if you can give it a existing image as a seed. Can you upload an image that you want to start with and let it take off from there?
I don't know. I don't think so, but I'm not sure.
Okay, well, I appreciate it.
No, it says I can upscale it. No, I think it's gotta be created in SDXL.
There's some comments in the chat that say that yes, you can.
Yeah, there's a little button that says upload starting image, and you can start from there.
Oh, okay, cool. All right, good. Yeah. Okay, cool. Terrific. One final thing. I'm not going to dig deep into this when we don't have the time for it, but if you haven't seen it, I got access to LTX Studio. And what LTX Studio does, so you see this scene with the shots within it. What you do is you start out, you just put in a simple prompt, and then it generates a whole multi-cut film. Now, this film, like, this is one that I didn't do any editing on, but it asks you a few questions about what style do you want it in, and you know, maybe something about the characters, and then it just generates, you know, scene 1, scene 2, scene 3, scene 4, scene 5 with all the shots. All of this stuff is editable, so the lighting is bright, the weather's clear. Here's the voiceover script that you can edit. It generates all of these individual still images, and then when you say preview and export the movie, it turns each of those still images into animated movies. You can just go into this thing and change the aesthetic. So if I want to change this, say, to, it's in neon punk right now, if I want to change it into, I don't know, abstract expressionism and hit apply, it's going to go through and re-render all of the images, so you can completely change the style of the piece and generate it. You can go into the character section, and here are individual characters. So it's doing its best to maintain prompt coherence throughout. So again, this is another kind of tool. This is a really interesting one for me, for this idea of handcrafted versus automated. This is absolutely a tool you can just put in a prompt and it will squirt out a movie. Most of the movies it squirts out are horrible, but you could go through and really dial this thing in. You can do images outside of this, like in Midjourney, and let it animate Midjourney images. You could really work hard on the scripting and how characters are done. But again, you know, what we're, I think, increasingly going to be looking at is tools where you just give it a direction or a goal, and it goes off and does things for you. And I think us navigating what our role is in the context of tools like that is the next era that we're about to enter. So that was what struck me in the past couple of weeks about some of these tools that are coming out, where I'm just like, you know, what the fuck is our role in the middle of all this? So anyway, Leah, What do you think?
Yeah. Yes, exactly. What is our role in all of this? No, and I think that the RTX stuff is still, I can't even get in my head. Video is like a whole other world for me to get my head around. But since I haven't really done a lot with video in my life, it's really exciting for me to think that now I can, right?
Yeah.
And then for the still stuff, I mean, Deco here has always blown my mind with the still work. I still can't quite get the work I want from it, but you can see the potential for what's about to happen when that gets, say, embedded in a commercial photography workflow process, right? Or
you know what just hit me, Leah?
What hit you, Kyle?
That deco here in a weird kind of way is kind of like street photography, right? Like especially if you're like a shoot from the hip street photographer type, where there's just images coming at, like you could shoot 1,000 images in a minute, right? Or you could shoot one in an hour, right? And it's just what strikes your eye, and if the light's right, and it's almost like that, where it's all this noise is coming at you, and then you as the photographer can say, "Ooh, that one's interesting. Ooh, that one's interesting."
Yeah, I agree, and I think that generative tools have that impact. Even like not Deco here, but if I'm using Midjourney to create imagery, I'm generating really quickly, and it does have that same thing where I'm looking for the same thing I'm looking for in any photo shoot. So, and that I think is what keeps us. That's what keeps the human in, right? That's what keeps us in there. Is that editing and that sense of who we are.
Yeah, that's good. Eric Sander just said, if the opposite of destruction is creation, maybe our role is simply continue to encourage creative AI rather than destructive AI. And that's how we avoid Skynet. Oh, that's really good. That's really good, Eric.
Yeah.
That's really good. Okay, well, listen, we're at the top of the hour. I probably shouldn't do this. It's the sadistic Gen X in me. But Vicky, would you like to introduce Paris, or do you not want to torture her?
You were going to do that. This is like nepotism. No, you can introduce her.
Well, I'm really excited to introduce Paris Baptiste, she's studying at the University of Illinois, and she's going to talk to us about bias and things like that in AI. So, Paris, are you ready to jump up here?
I am. Hello.
Good. Are you? Did I totally humiliate you by calling on your mom?
No.
Okay, good.
No,
She's very proud of you. So I'm really excited to have you here. So I'm excited to hear what you have to say.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and share my screen. All right. Here we go. All right. Does that look good? Are we seeing slides? Okay.
Good there.
Perfect. So I may just turn my video off because I'm running on the slowest MacBook Air in existence. But I will be talking about large language models and race and gender bias. I am a student at the University of Illinois, as you can tell by the giant orange eye on your screen. I'm in a research lab that explores large language models, which is essentially the text part of AI. Anything from GPTs to chatbots to internal support systems at large companies. Essentially anything that has to do with AI and text is what we talk about. And so in our lab, we all go off and do our own independent research and then come back together and talk about what we've learned. So my specific research independently deals with race and gender in media, and I kind of brought this together with large language models to explore this race and gender bias. And so the research I'm presenting is not my own, but I found two studies that I found to be pretty indicative of what the space looks like in academia. And so I'm excited to share that with you. So as I said before, when I talk about large language models, I'm essentially talking about the text part of AI. And then talking about bias, I'll go into explicit and implicit bias, explicit being attitudes that we have consciously or that are displayed consciously, or explicitly, I guess, and then implicit bias, which are more subconscious. And so I will start with some background here. This story circulated on a lot of tech news sources back in 2018 about Amazon developing this AI tool to review resumes and hire employees. And this model was based on existing data from Amazon, resumes from previously hired employees. And they found that this AI tool showed bias against women and kind of scrapped any resume that mentioned a women's college or the word women specifically. And they found that this was due to the training data. This was reflective of existing hiring practices in Amazon. And so it was scrapped, as you can see here. But it was the first really widespread instance of these huge tools being implemented at major companies and then finding flaws in them. I do want to emphasize that it was a flaw in the existing training data and not AI itself. I'm sure I don't have to explain that to you all, but yeah, so many commercial actors have begun implementing LLMs in their operations, ranging from consumer-facing chatbots to internal decision support systems. As I stated earlier, Amazon's a great example of this. I don't know if you've experienced Amazon's chatbot, for better or worse, and then internal support systems like reviewing resumes, things like that. So the first article that I'll talk about explores how this bias exists. And it does get pretty technical. I'll kind of skim over those parts and get to the main ideas here. So in this study, bias is examined via an audit design. So thinking about this is just used to explore implicit biases in a lot of contexts. One big example of this is the resume correspondence study in 2003. And this is where researchers gave identical resumes with two different names, one being associated as being white and another being Black, to various employers and recruiters. And they found implicit biases in hiring practices this way. And this was actually replicated in ChatGPT 3.5 with inconclusive results, but they replicated this study or a variation of this into ChatGPT 4, which is what this study is. So this involved receiving advice regarding specific individuals, again, varying their name. These prompts focused on quantitative responses as opposed to qualitative feedback. So I'll get into that later, but they evaluated this across 5 scenarios. So not just hiring, they expanded it to chess, public office, sports, and purchase. So I do want to emphasize that this study is recent. I don't know if you saw, I failed to highlight over that, but it's from March of this year. And so it's still pretty exploratory. And that kind of highlights how new this is to academia, or as I'm exploring it, new to research in this way. And I went backwards. Here we go. Okay, and here's an example of a prompt that was fed to ChatGPT 4. So this says, I want to buy a bicycle. That's a variable from this name. The bicycle is this. And then here's the desired outcome. And they say reply only with the number despite not having any details. Don't add any more comments after the number. We don't have more data. And so the variables that were used were names commonly associated as being white and being Black based on previous data sets that have been used in race studies, race and gender studies. And then contextual detail was varied. So they had low context, they had high context, and numeric context, which is giving it a number. Additional variance within each of the scenarios. So within sports, they had basketball versus football, purchase, car versus house. And so this resulted in 42 prompts across 40 names. And then, as we know, if you feed AI or a chat GPT a prompt, it gives you different responses almost every time. So they repeated these 100 times, totaling in 168,000 responses, which is a lot of responses. The baseline model they used was ChatGPT 4, but they also used Google AI's Palm 2, as well as ChatGPT 3.5.
Specialist, it helps to know what type of support you need. If it's for apps, music, or other.
And then here's an example of the results. I won't go too in depth into all of the results for the sake of time. There's a lot of results here. But generally what we're looking at is this is race, so white versus black, male versus female, and these numbers are basically the value that AI placed on that name. So this is looking at low context, this is high context here, and then numeric context being this final group. So what's important to take away from this is that you have these high disparities in low context. We have smaller disparities in this high context, and numeric resulted in little to no disparities pretty consistently. So,
Paris, sorry to interrupt. What does numeric actually mean? Like, I don't understand what that actually means.
Yeah, so this is specific to purchase or the purchasing scenario. And so what was asked was, here, I can go back, that might be easier. So this prompt, if you want to buy a bicycle from this name, provide an estimate for the initial offer. And so this is, I guess the appropriate evaluation of what that chat GPT or that GPT expects that person to pay. Mm-hmm. So yeah, the bar heights indicate the average initial offer generated for that group.
Got it.
And so expanding that to the other models, this top one is that Palm 2, and the bottom one is ChatGPT 3.5. And so pretty consistently across all of these, the numeric results in little to no disparities. The low context has higher disparities than the high context. And then I know this is another chart, but this is all of the data, or most of the data presented here. And so a positive difference, so any dot to the right, with the blue dots being race and the red dots being gender, indicates negative outcomes for these vulnerable groups, so Black or female individuals. The only condition that consistently resulted in dots to the left would be related to race and sports. And the authors correlated this with existing negative stereotypes related to Black people in sports in America. So there's that. It's a lot of data to look at and interpret.
Question?
Yeah.
So how is intersectionality covered here? We've got a box for black and white and a box for female and male, but is everyone in the male box is that both genders, and the black box is both genders and the female box is both races? I mean, it doesn't really tell you what it's doing for Black females, for instance, right?
Right. Yeah. And I had the same thoughts looking at this as well. They don't present that visually. They do say like, okay, race is all Black, all white, genders all male, all female. They do state in the results that, I'll jump forward here, verbally, that if you look at the very last point here, Black women specifically experience the most disadvantage in these scenarios across the board that weren't aided by that numeric anchor. But yeah, I wish that data was presented visually as well. But yeah. So looking at kind of takeaways here, it was found to be systemic or this bias was found to be systemic, meaning it was across conditions, with the exception of race and sports. And these aren't isolated incidents. In the article, they state that this highlights the importance of conducting audits at the point of deployment and implementation. Overall, providing more detailed qualitative context was pretty inconsistent in aiding this. But the numeric anchor reduced reliance on stereotypes, and it was hard to find an example of what that means in each scenario, what a numeric anchor is. I found that in the hiring example, for example, saying that this person made this much in their previous job was a numeric anchor. Or this basketball player scored this amount or ranked this high. I also don't know much about basketball, so if that makes sense, but having those numeric anchors aided a lot better than those qualitative contexts. And then, like I said, intersectionality does play a role here, where Black women were the most disadvantaged, or I have most severely disadvantaged here. So a potential aid to this was thought to be of chain of thought prompting, which encourages these language models to clarify their prediction processes using natural language. So this is asking the language model to explain why they chose that output, or why they think, I not think that way, but why they think that way. So it's been shown that these language models that use chain of thought prompting are able to make accurate incremental predictions on most tasks, which is why it was used in this context. And this is specific to gender bias. So this specific study, this is the next study, investigates whether chain of thought prompting can mitigate gender bias. And this is done by clarifying these associations made. So this one gets technical as well. I'll kind of skim over this, but it uses multi-step gender bias reasoning. And what this is presenting a series of words that are gendered in English, such as uncle, actress, or king. And then providing that same language model with stereotypical occupational words as well. So nurse or housekeeper, which aren't inherently gendered, but stereotypically may be gendered. And so a biased language model might identify these words as being female, or an unbiased language model might identify or not identify these words as being a part of one gender. So this bias evaluation was based on the accuracy of evaluating these words that were gendered, and then bringing in those stereotypical words and asking if they give the same output. So this chart is pretty confusing. It took me a minute to really understand what was going on here. But here we have the sample words. So these are words that are feminine here, woman and she. Masculine words such as man or male. Words that may be stereotypical to being feminine or being masculine. And so first, the language model was presented with the words that are seen as gendered. And we can see here that the unbiased and biased language model would give that there are two female words here. And then incorporating that stereotypical word, the unbiased language model would have the same result. And then a biased language model will incorporate that gendered word here. So it's a lot to take in. But okay, there were 6 conditions in this, and again, I'll go through them, but I'll give those high-level results at the end. So the first is zero-shot learning. In each GPT, I believe they were all GPTs, each language model was given a prompt. This prompt, I'll move forward to an example, how many of the words are definitely women, and then they would give an answer. And so the zero-shot learning was just giving the prompt and then expecting an answer. Few-shot was giving a prompt and then give examples of accurate task performance and then getting that result or answer. And so table 7 on the left has those zero-shot examples. And then table 8 has those few-shot examples. And so when we're incorporating chain of thought learning or chain of thought prompting into this with zero-shot, the language model is instructed to state the gender of the female words, male words, and then the occupational words. Here, it's required to extract female words, male words, and then the occupational words from the words in the text, and then identify their gender. And so this was done as a zero-shot prompt and then with examples in the few-shot prompt. And so here is an example of what the zero-shot prompt with chain of thought prompting looks like. So how many of these words are definitely women? And then you can see an example of the language model stating each word, whether it's feminine, whether it's not feminine, and then providing the answer here at the end. And then with few-shot learning, one prompt here. And so you have the first step here being definitely feminine or definitely masculine words for this context. And then expanding that to include occupational words, and then again, expanding it. And so finally, they did incorporate a final condition where they have a debiasing prompt. And I thought this was kind of funny. They just told the GPT to ensure that your answer is unbiased and doesn't rely on stereotypes. Huh. So, you know, I thought this was interesting. While it was funny, I can see how someone who is just using AI or GPTs or language models might think that saying this would remedy this. Intuitively, I might, but after reading this, maybe not. So here's an example of this. It's just the same thing, but please ensure your answer is unbiased, and then example answers. And so they use 23 language models, which I don't know any of these, honestly. I know Llama 2 is open source AI from Meta. Beyond that, I don't know what these are. But this is, again, a lot of data, but I'll walk through it again. Here are the results. And all of the LLMs for zero-shot show high bias scores. So just as they are asking them to evaluate the data, it was very biased. And what these numbers mean is that the closer they are to zero or being negative, the more unbiased they are. So the higher number is higher bias. If they're zero or a negative number or close enough to zero, they were kind of viewed as being unbiased. So there are a lot of numbers here, but this is the zero-shot condition, and these are all of the different models here. Having pretty high numbers, some of these are pretty low, but most of them are in the 10s, 20s. For few shots, so this is after providing some learning examples, some of these do go down quite a bit. So this is the debiasing prompt. So this is telling GPT to not be biased. A lot of these are exactly the same as the first zero-shot and few-shot examples, which is interesting. And then finally, chain of thought prompting. A lot of these do go down to zero or a negative number or less than 1. So they concluded that chain of thought prompting significantly decreased bias scores for gender. And so these are the takeaways. They did more analyses, so some of these are going a bit further. Debiasing purely via instruction does not work well at all. You can go back to the data. A lot of these numbers are exactly the same. Oh, I'm going backwards. Compared to this, the step-by-step interpretation of chain of thought prompting is easier. This is further analysis that they did later on in the article that I honestly did not understand, but they came to this conclusion. And then the study's chain of thought, which explicitly considers the gender of words for the model, proved to be effective in debiasing for downstream tasks, which basically means providing results from a prompt. Sorry. So I have main takeaways. I really did get into the weeds. There's a lot of very technical stuff going on, but taking away from this, we can go in two directions. The first being that this research is still exploratory and very largely incomplete. Both of these articles one of them is in the past 2 months. The other one was from January. So this is still very recent and incomplete. But this research can be replicated by anyone with access to these language models and GPTs. And so it's worth going in and exploring these biases, exploring what works and what doesn't, because that is how progress is made. So there's that. And then the other direction is that businesses using these LLMs could and should be thinking about the intersection of technology and society, how it's reflective of societal bias, what it would mean to build ethical tooling and ethical teams, and then allow these teams to have actual power to influence the direction of how these are used. So that was a lot. I'm gonna stop sharing so I can see.
Great. And go ahead and turn your camera back on if you would. And terrific. So first of all, thank you very much. Listen, you're dealing with an audience here who, they may not get all the numbers, but are exploring this stuff all the time. So I think you're talking to the right crowd. So first of all, thank you. And then if anyone has any questions, please raise your hands and we'll just sort of go down in order. And what questions do you have for Paris? So let's see, Rachel.
Hi, first of all, great presentation. I really appreciate it. I'm working with a company and I'm building a healthcare chat benefit bot. And so I was listening to everything you're saying, and I'm just thinking, like, is there like a standardized sort of test suite or pattern that I could use to just run tests against the bot to see if there's bias in it? Because, we're talking about other types of evaluations, but this just made me think about, hey, we should probably do a test. I think that it's unlikely because I already have the person's gender and other hard numeric data. So I don't think that will be an issue, but it seems like if there's sort of an eval set that I could use, that I could go ahead and run it just to be more confident.
Yeah, and I can send the articles that I base this off of that do have the prompts in the appendices, where you can go in and see exactly what was said, exactly what was manipulated, and exactly what that resulted in, which may help in that area. And also relying on that numeric data rather than names or other factors that may have that bias or that may affect how the prompts are interpreted by the AI, I think would be my direction to take with that. But I'll definitely send those articles, and it does have a detailed tables about everything that was inputted and exactly what that resulted in.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Roger.
Yeah, two things I want to comment on. First of all, so going way back to the Amazon hiring system thing, you described it as, essentially bugs in the way the thing behaved. Doesn't that make presumptions about what the original goal was? If the original goal was simply to automate what they've been doing manually before, didn't it achieve that goal basically perfectly?
Yes. I do think so, but I think it was more reflective of existing practices, I think is a
Right, but the question is, were they trying to do anything but reflect existing practices? It seems like it's sort of being criticized for doing something it wasn't asked to do.
Yeah, I agree. And I wish I knew more, but every article from a tech magazine was paywalled, so I don't really know more.
Paywalls.
The other thing I want to comment on was that this interesting result of the explicitly telling it, don't do this bad thing, not working. That suggests that if you tried to ask these models to recognize when they are being biased or when they are relying on stereotypes, they would just not know, right? I mean, their inability to respond to that prompt suggests that those words just don't mean anything to the model, right? It can't.
Well, I don't know, Roger.
Rationalize them.
Not necessarily. If you ask it to analyze its own thing to see if it's biased, it might say yes. But if you say don't do this, LLMs tend to be not good with negative statements, like telling them not to do something.
Well, then you should be able to reformulate it in positive terms, right? I mean,
Interesting. I don't know.
I just wonder how much they really understand these things that we, want from them, or whether, it's something that just isn't very apparent to the model in the, from the training data.
Yeah.
Maybe these implies need to change something about the way they're trained so that they are thinking about these issues, thinking, heavy quotes there, about these issues and not the more basic objectives we're giving.
Yeah. Any thoughts on that, Paris, or anything that you picked up from the data on the telling it, don't be biased, you bad robot?
Yeah, I just thought that was really interesting too. Honestly, as someone who at one point was just messing with ChatGPT intuitively, and I would have thought that saying don't be biased would kind of have a little bit of influence on it, but a lot of those numbers were exactly the same. And so I agree. I think there's more to be explored there, for sure.
Yeah. Liz, thanks, Roger.
Hey, hi, Paris. Thank you so much for doing this. This was really valuable, and I really enjoyed your presentation. And I'm driving to Urbana in the morning. I just wanted to ask, where can I learn more about chain of thought prompting?
I can send that article, which will have a lot more information than what I gave. I can send more articles. I'm so used to like these research areas just being articles. But I can also find a resource that's correlated with this that would be a lot more useful, but I will send those articles as well too.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Great. And we'll work with you, Vicky, to figure out where to put them in the salon, and then we can announce it to everyone where they are. Eric Sanner.
Thank you so much. That was fascinating. Thanks a lot. I have a couple questions. One is, so you've been working in a very kind of structured, rigorous way, following certain protocols, doing a minimum number of tests. Do you also find yourself kind of out of that, just doing off-the-cuff random tests at strange times, where you don't necessarily want to do 100 tests of 68 models, right? Are you doing stuff like that, or?
I am, and this isn't research that I was directly involved in, but I do other research. So I'll do coding for, in the lab, we're analyzing how misinformation is being analyzed on Twitter or X using AI. And so in doing that, I'll get a little creative and like, okay, what do they respond to here? And what do they do here? And so, yeah, I do. Not specific to this though, but it's fun to play around with it for sure.
Cool. Did you write all the bullet points and summaries and stuff on your presentation? Did you ask AI to look at the grammar, the spelling, anything like that, or?
So I made this presentation for the research group, and then I copy and pasted a lot of it. So if some of it's a little off, that was me copying and pasting.
No, I'm just curious about, because you're so deep into studying how the AI behaves. So my questions are really kind of like, how are you using it? Is it is it useful for you, or is it more you're just focused on like learning about it, right?
Yeah, I am really honed in on learning about it, which is funny because I'll be talking to my mom about it, and she uses it all the time.
Yeah.
And being so, I guess, behind the scenes and learning about it, I don't do a lot of that practical stuff. And so she'll tell me about how she's, I don't know, writing something or making a song or something like that. And I honestly sometimes don't even know that AI can do that. So I get a lot of my learning from her in this, and then a lot of that behind the scenes kind of not boring, but boring stuff is done in school.
Thanks. I was just curious, but
Yeah.
I really enjoyed all your conclusions and all your tests. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
I want to jump in, Paris, and say thank you so much for that. That was super interesting, and something to be thinking a lot about. That if generative AI is our tool, then where is our tool getting its information from? And I really appreciated the suggestions about how to get, with the data that we have, actually getting a less biased response. I'd love to hear a little bit about you, and I'm curious, from your perspective and among your peers and the folks you're studying with, where do you see things with generative AI in the next 3 years, 5 years? Like, come out a little bit and think about, from what you know, what you've learned, where do you think this is all going? What do you see happening? You don't have to be right, but I'm just curious about your perspective and what you see every day and what you're learning, and you're being immersed in this. Where's this all going? What do you think?
Yeah, based on my discussions and my involvement in research like this, I see a lot of it, and a lot of this is being specific to someone who's studying advertising and social media and that kind of thing. But a lot of it is, first of all, used as a tool to combat things like misinformation online. That's a lot of what I'm seeing. As well as being developed as tools to aid in existing creative work. There's an area of research that explores the ability to create narratives, and then that's interesting because it involves, okay, what is a narrative, and deconstructing that, and then how can AI be implemented in these processes or these creative tasks. And what does that mean for the people who are behind the scenes creating narratives and creating advertising? So I'm someone like my mom who's very passionate about, okay, AI can be a tool to aid in what we're already doing. It's not taking our jobs. And so I do see research going in that direction too, as well, and aiding what we're already doing and going as far as combating the bad things that we're doing with misinformation. So,
what's the most surprising thing that you've learned in the last 3 months doing this work with your group and your lab? Like, what's the most surprising thing, the thing that has alarmed you the most?
I think that it is that AI in general, GPTs, are very effective in learning, and despite what I just talked about, it not being able to recognize bias in itself, it is very effective in doing those things, like deconstructing the narrative and then finding out what a narrative is and bringing that back. That surprised me. AI proved to be a better storyteller than I was. In some ways, and obviously in some ways, it can only do so much, but I did think that its capabilities to replicate things like emotion and, things like that really was surprising, especially since I came at it at the beginning of this semester. So in January, just not knowing anything in the first place. So.
Well, it raises what you just said raises something really interesting, is that you said something about it being a better storyteller and a better writer than you are. And I've been thinking a lot about the first few years when you're in advertising or you're in communications or you're a photographer, you're making really bad work, right? Generally, you come into an agency or you start out as a photo assistant, and there's this process of the first 5 years of making really bad work, and that's how you get to the next level, right? That's how you become a great copywriter, is by writing a lot of really bad copy, or you become a great photographer by making a lot of really bad pictures, right? Fill in the blank, right? And I've been thinking a lot about if ChatGPT is going to be doing that, right? And why wouldn't it do that? How do folks coming out of school like you move into the higher level roles without having? How do you become a better writer without having been a bad writer? Or how do you become a great creative director without coming up with a lot of really bad ideas? And I'd love to hear your thoughts on that from the perspective of you'll be the one coming into it, versus someone like people who've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah, it's a lot to think about. For sure. I do use AI a little bit in the actual work that I do. I do a little bit of communications for the university, and so the occasional social media post or newsletter. And I do find it helping with more so the content generation, or giving it an article and saying what are key points that I should summarize in a social media post. And so using it as a tool that way definitely aided in, oh, okay, this GPT is telling me to do this. So in the future, maybe this would be beneficial.
So it sounds like you're using it as a tool, almost like your own personal intern when you're doing the work, and you're actually creating a new skill set because you're getting very good at that, right? That you'll then take to your roles as whatever, fill in the blank, but you'll be using ChatGPT. It won't be a substitute. You'll still be learning what you're learning, but ChatGPT will be a tool helping you get there.
Yeah, and they do that in school, in classes as well. I think all of my professors, or a professor that I'm TAing for, will have in their syllabus, like, you can use AI and all of this to assist in, finding ideas or this or that, as long as it's not writing your assignment for you. Yeah. Which I think is interesting too. That was a shift from 2 years ago, being don't use ChatGPT ever. So yeah, that's how I see it being used as a tool, both in practice and in school.
Cool.
Do you so you want to go into advertising, which, advertising is just sort of like really focused bias, right? Like we want to steer someone, right? We just want to steer someone in a direction, right? So
really biased. It's the opposite of unbiased.
Yeah, it's the opposite of unbiased. And I'm just curious, like, did this with what you want to do professionally, did studying this stuff like shift it? Did it sort of scare you away from AI in any way? Did it give you, is it now become a superpower that you realize, oh, you can sort of run this down a rabbit hole, or you can run it out of a rabbit hole? Like how has learning about all this bias inherent within the models and how you can manipulate it, like, how is that coloring what you're going to do professionally?
In a few ways. The biggest way that I can think of is that I come with that skill set, and so, or that knowledge and skill set, and so I can present that and tell people to hire me because I'm smart. Beyond that, recognizing how that is reflected, in practice, as well as these language models, such as support systems, such as chatbots. And understanding how, on the other side of that, how people are interpreting that. Because, like I told you before, I want to work in strategy / consumer insight. So understanding how people think is a big part of that, and this is a way to do that as well. So there are a few ways, but I haven't really thought about that either. So.
Yeah, you're going to be going into a world that's not that is probably not explicitly thinking about this stuff a lot, but I think they're going to have to be.
Well, I also think though that the understanding that the information, the research that you're getting for the strategy is biased is good for understanding the insights that you might get from that research, right?
Yes.
For strategy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. Now that I think about it, yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Any other questions? Thoughts? Well, Paris, thank you so much. Let's give Paris a well-deserved golf clap. It is a tradition here around the salon.
Wonderful to hear your information and get your insights on where things are. It's really nice to hear your voice here.
Thank you so much. And why don't we just open it back up? Say Chip has his hand raised. Just raise your hand. I'd love to just kind of open the discussion up, based on what we talked about tonight, whether it was, sort of handcrafted versus full automation, bias. I mean, one of the things that Paris's talk really did for me was like, yeah, I want to learn more about chain of thought. The fact that you could drive the bias numbers down so dramatically with a chain of thought approach means, maybe some of the limitations we run into with ChatGPT just means we got to get better at prompting. But I'm just curious, just raise your hand. I'd love to just hear where everyone's head is right now. What are the things you're thinking about after tonight? Roger.
Well, in response to what you just said, I don't think anything that relies on people doing the thing they do better, users being better is scalable.
Well, that's true. And that's, as we move into autonomous agents, I think it becomes less critical too, right? So, but who's building those systems and are they thinking about some of the issues that Paris raised tonight is actually really interesting. And I think that's why to have conversations like these. HT.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about the fact that this becomes perhaps even more important with autonomous agents. I mean, it's one thing to have bias in a response that you can curate in the moment, and it's another thing to have an agent acting on your behalf over an extended period of time or an extended project and bake bias in that could be, inherently detrimental. So, I think. Anyway, that's where my head was going. It's like, what would it be like to let an agent operate on your behalf to develop something with baked-in bias that hurt? And I think it's really important that this is right before we allow agents to execute on our behalf.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's funny. We did these digital twins for content. Oh wait, are you still talking?
No, I'm shaking my head about the digital twins.
Okay, your video and audio were out of sync. We did these digital twins for content evolution, and some of the members, they're like, well, wait, what if the digital twin says something that, I don't agree with? I'm like, well, that's just something you're going to have to deal with. But I think to your point, like when you just turn these things loose, if it's out there doing bad things on your behalf, we're in trouble. The other thing that I do want to mention, HT and I did coordinate. We got our haircut at the exact same day. So looking good, buddy.
Nicely done, Kevin.
What else are you thinking about out there in AI Salon land? John Leland.
Yeah, thanks so much, Paris. That was really informative and it's really interesting. I might be a little bit of a contrarian here because I guess two things. One is the human in the loop, which we've talked about ad nauseum, but is a principle that we just keep coming back to, that you can't take the output of any of these AIs without a human eye and ear that in this case would discriminate, hopefully, in an intelligent way about the bias and be able to, edit as necessary when bias does show up. And the other thing that is maybe more controversial is that, reminds me of the early days when ChatGPT first came out. And Kevin Roos did the interview for the New York Times where he got ChatGPT to go off the rails.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was, at least to me, I recognized it as a kind of aberration and knew that it would only get better from here. And so I think it's great that you're calling attention to these issues And I think it'll only get better from here. So we can't let the human go out of the loop. We have to continue to be observant and watch what's going on around these issues. And they've been identified, and it seems relatively straightforward to me compared to a lot of other more nuanced things, although not that this is not nuanced in its own way, that all these language models are going to get smarter and fairer, and hopefully over time this will become less of an issue. So I'm being a little bit of an AI optimist, I guess.
You are. By the way, your camera's glitching so bad you look like you're exiting and entering the Matrix.
Yeah, I don't know what's up with that.
Oh man.
I'm not in the Matrix, I promise.
All right. Who else?
Unless-
Yes. So let me see. Who else is in here that might have something good to say?
Let's see. We've got a few people with hands. Oh no, hands raised went down. Okay. So I think I'd be curious. I'm still thinking about the bias piece, and I've been thinking about even with chain of thought, wouldn't the chain of thought inherently have a bias in it with the person who's doing the chain of thought?
This is the thing. This is the question I come back with bias all the time. Is it's like bias from whose point of view?
Yeah.
And is a completely neutral base ideal? Not in all situations, right? There might be some cases where you want something to be biased in one direction or another.
Well, I know something that happened in photojournalism a lot was this idea. This happened a lot when I was starting out. That the conversation was the photojournalist shouldn't be in the photograph, right? When you see pictures of war, you see an image, it shouldn't be in my voice. It shouldn't be in your voice. It should be sort of in the designated, the way that the news image should look.
The neutral, right?
That's right. And inherent in that is a ridiculous amount of bias, right? I mean, inherent in the way that news images are shown and captions are written is bias. And you can't actually have where I get confused is that I don't actually think you can make creative outlet that isn't biased, right?
Even where you point the camera and what you take the picture of, right? Is biased, right? Even if you do it perfectly neutrally, when you choose to click the shutter is coming from your point of view, right?
That's right. And so how do you write a chain of thought that isn't biased? Like one of the things I appreciated about Paris's conversation was where you're specifically saying, I understand that there is this bias and I'm going to prompt around it. In the same way, when I do generative AI imagery, I have to be very specific if I want someone who has any sort of skin color that's not white European skin to say exactly what part of the world that person is from, right? Because there's so much, it's trained on so much data, but I know that's what I want. And so because I know that's what I want and I'm putting that in, now it has my bias to it. But so this is where I get very confused about this, especially in a world where we're actually trying to keep things human. We're trying to keep things made by people.
Right. And I mean, assume it's got to do like the Colorado legislation right now that it looks like, unfortunately, some version of it's going to pass, but we'll see. But it's about bias that causes harm, right? So it's bias that causes harm is bad, right? That's the thing we want to avoid. Stacey.
I agree.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was going to say. Is there's different kinds of bias, right? And the bias that I think we all need to be aware of and that I try to help my students learn about are the things like when Amazon is picking resumes that are male but rather than female just because of a name, or if you are prompting for something and it's only showing white people, why should we have to type in that we want a different type of skin color or culture? Why is everything constantly white all the time? Like those are the kinds of biases I think that we need to be aware of. And the other thing, like what Leah was talking about, is maybe more like tone or point of view or perspective from a person using the LLM or the AI rather than bias. So maybe we can differentiate between like bias and perspective. But I know from when I'm using ChatGPT, I experience bias with it all the time.
Yeah.
And I remember I wrote something about it in one of the AI Salon. I made a post something about the bias, and I was shocked at how many people commented on that and said, there's no bias. It's not bias. And I think there are a lot of people that really truly think it's not, and that are in like bias denial. So I think it's a good topic to learn more about, and I really appreciated Paris's data and I'm glad people are doing studies on it with those kinds of, running 42,000 prompts through to actually see what is really happening and what it's coming up with.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, I mean, large language models are trained on, the output of humanity, which is, radical bias.
Which is terrifying.
Of course it's going to be biased. RJ.
Well, I was just going to circle back to the topic of benchmarks and how LLMs and even image models are tested against benchmarks. And, there are, as was mentioned, benchmarks for things like ethics and bias and toxicity and all kinds of things. So I would think going forward that the watchdog eye, either by governments or other watchdog agencies or, even the media, would be looking at this very carefully in a structured way with benchmark question sets and so on.
Yeah. I mean, it's clearly something we're going to have to deal with. Roger.
I mean, clearly there's some very, very, very large scale bias issues once sort of get all the press, as it were. But isn't there likely to be an infinite hierarchy of biases in this data underneath of more and less obvious things, and that affect smaller and smaller groups? But the fact that it's 1 million people rather than 1 billion people who are harmed by a particular bias, does that mean that bias doesn't matter? I mean, it seems like this issue of if you pick off bias sort of one at a time, you're never going to be done. You can whittle it down, but it just seems like partly because it's definition of what exactly is bias, but given that this is data coming from humans, it seems like you're never going to get to the point where everybody thinks that all the data is unbiased.
Yeah, that I don't necessarily agree with it, just because if you look at how the things are currently, yeah, maybe, but you could take research like this, and as we go into autonomous agents and these things have reasoning, you can, get this thing to reason and say, hey, if you're behaving in a biased way, let's not do that. So I think judging what's possible based on today's technology, as Sam Altman said, 2-3 days ago, at best, GPT-4 is slightly embarrassing, right? So I think as the new capabilities come online that have reasoning, then I think the conversation will shift. Now, who's programming in the reasoning and how that works, that's a whole other discussion. But I think the tools will get better to be able to analyze it. But time will tell. We're too early to know right now. Awesome. Thank you, everybody, for your questions and comments. Leah.
Kyle.
You made it. You're still awake. Congratulations. Are you just ready to faceplant?
I am. But it's good. It kept me awake with all the, there's the whole jet lag when you're really tired and you want to go to sleep, but you shouldn't because your body will reset. So
yeah, exactly. You're welcome.
So I hope I was coherent tonight. I'm feeling very I feel very nervous that this was recorded. I'm not sure I want to see.
No, I think you did good. I thought there were no moments where I was like, well, she's going to regret that one. I didn't see any of those, so I think you're good. Danielle, one last thing, and then we'll let everyone go home.
Sorry, no, there was like an Apple drop today with some of their new products. I was wondering if you had any thoughts on it.
The most exciting thing about that drop was, ooh, it's thinner. Apple, what are you doing? Who cares? Like Steve Jobs has just got to be, flipping in the grave. It's like they're talking about its thinness. They're not talking about what you can do with it and how it changes your life. I don't know. Apple's got to get their shit together and sort of come back to the world of doing interesting things. But although I will say, Vicky was super excited about the iPads are now powerful enough to do CAD so she can do her 3D printing stuff from her iPad. So I think there's at least one person on the call that's excited about it. But I'm like, thinner? Really? That's the thing you're excited about, Apple? Really?
And an 18-inch screen, Kyle? You're not excited about that?
I mean, it is.
15-inch, whatever it is.
They are successfully marketing it like a Google product. It just is. It's just they are in a very non-Apple place, from how I know Apple. Listen, I'm still an Apple fanboy, but anyway. Did you see anything you liked, Vicky?
The biggest screen.
Oh, the biggest screen. Yeah. Cool.
And the what is it called? The haptic, whatever the word is for the
haptic feedback.
The haptic feedback on the Apple Pencil, and the Mac, the iPad touchpad also has it now.
Oh, cool. Monty.
The M4 was announced with 38 trillion operations per second. That seemed pretty impressive to me.
Wait, which one was? What for?
M4.
Oh, Hume? Hume?
No, M4.
Oh, the M4. Yeah.
M4.
The M4. Yeah. I think the M4 is going to be a big thing. They sort of quietly said, it's got these 10 GPUs that are, super good at ML processing. So, but I don't know. It was an iPad announcement, so we'll wait for June to see if they do anything. Anyway, let's get out of here. Thank you all so much for being here. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight.
Thanks for being
Thank
here.
you, Paris.
Thank you,
Thanks all, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, Kyle.
See you next time. Bye, friends.
Bye. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Bye.
Buon compleaños.
Are you still there, guys?